Good evening, this is Trending Daily. I'm Makhdoom Shahabuddin. Tonight we are not dealing in assumptions, emotions or social media narratives. Tonight is about facts, consequences and a hard national reality that Pakistan has been forced to confront over the last 4 years. When the Taliban returned to power in Kabul in 2021, the world largely walked away. Embassies shut down, funds were frozen, and Afghanistan was pushed into diplomatic isolation. Pakistan did not abandon the region. Pakistan chose engagement. Pakistan chose responsibility. Pakistan chose stability over chaos. That decision, however, has come at a devastating cost. 4 years later, Pakistan has emerged as the country paying the heaviest price for post-Taliban Afghanistan. What was once viewed in Islamabad as a strategic opportunity has turned into a growing security nightmare. Terrorist attacks have surged, border tensions have intensified, old assumptions have collapsed, and the regional balance has shifted in ways deeply unfavorable to Pakistan. While other regional powers adjusted their policies quietly and insulated themselves from fallout, Pakistan found itself absorbing the shockwaves of Afghanistan's transformation. In 2021, there was genuine hope within Pakistan's policy circles that a friendly government in Kabul would finally secure the western border and reduce militancy. Many believed that decades of bloodshed were coming to an end. Instead, since that year, Pakistan has witnessed a dramatic resurgence of terrorism. Independent security data and official figures show that terrorist attacks inside Pakistan have increased by nearly 70 to 80%. This was not a coincidence. This spike directly followed the Taliban's return to power. The most alarming aspect of this resurgence has been the re-emergence of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan Fitna al-Khawarij. Intelligence assessments, regional security reports and international publications have consistently confirmed that the TTP operates freely from Afghan territory. Provinces such as Khost, Kunar and Paktika have become operational hubs where planning, recruitment and training continue largely unhindered. Pakistan has raised this issue repeatedly through diplomatic channels. Evidence has been shared, engagement has been pursued, appeals have been made at both bilateral and international forums. Yet Kabul has consistently refused to take decisive action. And the reason is deeply troubling. Within the Taliban's ideological framework, the Fitna al-Khawarij TTP is not treated as an enemy of regional stability. It is viewed as an ideological ally. This alignment has created a dangerous stalemate in which Pakistan's security concerns are dismissed or downplayed. The consequences of this policy became impossible to ignore after major attacks in Peshawar and Bannu in 2025. Pakistani authorities revealed that forensic and intelligence investigations showed that nearly 70% of the attackers involved in these incidents were Afghan nationals. This single disclosure fundamentally altered the national conversation. This was no longer a question of border management or internal security lapses. This was the active export of violence. Afghan soil was being used as a launchpad for attacks inside Pakistan. Alongside the TTP, other extremist outfits, including ISIS-K and Al-Qaeda, have exploited the permissive environment. ISIS-K in particular has recruited from disgruntled Taliban and TTP elements, creating an even more volatile and unpredictable threat landscape. As Pakistan grappled with rising insecurity, another development unfolded quietly but carried profound strategic implications. India re-entered Kabul. Between 2024 and 2025, New Delhi restored a technical presence at its embassy and expanded humanitarian engagement. High-level meetings between Afghan officials and Indian representatives signaled a deliberate diversification of Kabul's regional relationships. For Pakistan, this was deeply unsettling. For decades, Islamabad has sought to limit Indian influence in Afghanistan to prevent strategic encirclement. This was not paranoia. It was based on historical experience and repeated patterns of proxy conflict. The Taliban's willingness to engage with India at a time when Pakistan was facing the worst wave of Afghan-linked terrorism in years was viewed in Islamabad as a betrayal. After years of political and diplomatic support, Pakistan watched as Kabul opened doors to a rival power that Pakistan considers actively hostile. The emerging alignment intensified concerns that Afghan territory could once again be used to destabilize Pakistan's western provinces, particularly Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Despite mounting Seeing pressure, Pakistan did not immediately resort to force. Islamabad pursued strategic patience. In mid-2025, Pakistan supported a non-military approach through mediation, facilitated by the UAE and Qatar. The proposal involved relocating TTP militants away from the During Line to distant regions of Afghanistan in order to reduce cross-border attacks. Pakistan publicly backed this initiative, signaling its presence for de-escalation and dialogue. The plan failed. Many militants simply refused to relocate. Others treated the process as a temporary pause, using the time to reorganize and rearm. The Taliban failed to enforce compliance, reinforcing growing concerns in Islamabad that Kabul either lacked the will or the authority to rein in these groups. As attacks continued despite repeated assurances, trust eroded rapidly. By September and October of 2025, Pakistan reached a breaking point. A surge in suicide bombings and targeted attacks made it clear that diplomatic patience had reached its limit. Pakistan transitioned from restraint to active deterrence. The military launched targeted air and drone operations against high-value TTP targets inside Afghanistan. One of the most significant strikes targeted a senior TTP gathering in Kabul linked to Noor Wali Mahsood. Although Mahsood survived, several top commanders were eliminated. These operations were not indiscriminate. They were precise, intelligence-driven, and defensive in nature. They sent a clear message that Pakistan would no longer tolerate attacks planned from across the border under the cover of ideological solidarity. The Taliban's response was immediate artillery fire, and it was directed at Pakistani border posts in the areas such as Kuram and Chagai, targeting the most intense border clashes since 2021. Yet even during this escalation, Pakistan avoided widening the conflict. The Pakistan Army successfully neutralized more than 20 hostile positions and dismantled militant infrastructure while maintaining operational discipline. The objective was deterrence, not occupation. Defense, not escalation. Pakistan demonstrated that it has both the capability and the resolve to protect its citizens. To understand the present, one must also acknowledge history. Afghanistan was the only country to oppose Pakistan's admission to the United Nations in 1947. For decades, successive Afghan regimes sponsored separatist movements and unrest in Pakistan's tribal regions. Today's Taliban government has replaced old nationalist proxies with new extremist ones, but the underlying pattern remains unchanged. The tools have evolved, but the policy of exerting pressure on Pakistan's sovereignty persists. The cost of Pakistan's patience has been enormous. More than 80,000 Pakistanis, including civilians and security personnel, have lost their lives since the start of the war on terror. The economic damage exceeds $150 billion. Entire communities have lived through trauma, displacement, and fear. After years of hard-won stability, the post-2021 surge in violence has been particularly painful because mainly many Pakistanis believe the darkest chapter was behind them. Yet despite everything, Pakistan has not declared full-scale war. Back-channel diplomacy continues through regional mediators to prevent a complete breakdown in relations. Islamabad remains committed to preventing wider regional instability, even as it refuses to compromise on core security interests. Analysts remain cautious as long as militant groups are treated as ideological assets rather than liabilities. Pakistan's security dilemma will persist. Ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude, there is a final and critical point that must be addressed. Regional instability does not always arrive in the form of cross-border attacks or foreign fighters. Sometimes it enters through chaos engineered within. The region has already witnessed how unrest, when hijacked by violent and extremist elements, can spiral into uncontrolled bloodshed. In Iran, protests were rapidly weaponized, and within hours, innocent lives were burned, shot, and hacked, including people who were never part of any violence. What began as street agitation quickly transformed into organized disorder. Pakistan cannot afford a similar scenario. Any attempt to exploit public grievances, enforce shutdowns, or incite street violence in coordination with extremist networks or foreign-backed actors is not protest. It is subversion. Pakistan has already suffered from political crime terror nexuses operating in sensitive regions, and the consequences were devastating. National stability is not negotiable. State authority is not optional. Internal chaos only serves the enemies of Pakistan, both within and beyond the borders. The lessons from Iran and from our own painful history are clear, and ignoring them would be a dangerous mistake. Pakistan's recent military actions are not acts of aggression. They are a consequence of a neighbor that repeatedly chose to harbor terrorists over honoring commitments. As Pakistan navigates a narrow path between diplomacy and deterrence, the future remains uncertain. What is certain is this: Pakistan has sacrificed the most, exercised the greatest restraint, and carried the heaviest burden. And Pakistan will not continue to bleed in silence. This is Trending Daily. We decode narratives, we confront uncomfortable truths, and we speak for Pakistan.